Well, this was the prequel to Pacific Rim that none of us knew we wanted. I refer, of course, to Aquaman breaking out of the center of the earth and riding the kaiju to victory, obviously. Didn't you see that coming? What's shakin' bacons? We're gonna talk about our spoilers now for Aquaman, so P.S. heads up spoilers. This entire movie, I went back and forth between, yeah, to what the and then at certain points, I can't remember the last time I felt so conflicted watching a movie, because I like this, but at the same time, I'm acknowledging that it's terrible. It's sort of like junk food. I acknowledge it's terrible, but I still like to eat it. You know what I'm saying? I enjoyed this movie. It's very fun, but there's just a lot of plot holes. I think the plot's dumb, but it's a fun movie, and the action's baller. I loved the action and the fight scenes. Freaking awesome. I loved seeing Nicole Kidman kick ass at the beginning of the movie. I loved seeing Mira kick ass throughout the movie. I loved seeing Aquaman kick ass throughout the movie. Like, the action is just really nonstop. It's amazing visually. The CG is on point. Just the whole world is so well developed, and I loved that they embraced the full lore of Aquaman. There's just a lot of plot holes. There are so many issues with this movie. It's insanely predictable. Like, you know what Black Manta's going to be doing. You can guess that she's going to be tracked by her bracelet. You can guess that Atlanta is still alive. Literally every action that Mira ever took was very predictable, although I will say part of that is due to the fact that she's not a great actress in this. Literally everything Orm did, like the whole plot, it's all predictable. And there are so many plot holes. For example, the submarine scene, when Orm convinces the other king to go to war against the surfacers with him, he proves his point because a submarine conveniently attacks them right when he's trying to convince the guy that they need to go to war. The entire thing with the submarine, first of all, how did they even know where it was? How did Aquaman even know where it was to save them? Is he on the payroll of the government or of the DOD? Like, are they reaching out to him? How did he know where it was? Did his dad tell him? I thought the implication was no, that his dad did not tell him. How did Black Manta board the submarine without depressurizing it? That's just like, how? How? I want to know how. I don't think that's possible. Like, how is that even possible? And how did he know where it was? Was Orm just conveniently following the submarine or tracking it? Is that what the assumption is? And then the entire submarine subplot where we find out Orm orchestrated it just goes nowhere. No one but us as the audience finds out about that, and that really bothered me. I felt like it should be tied in somewhere else, because otherwise that's a lot of included detail that wasn't necessarily necessary. The Jurassic Park world of dinosaurs in the middle of the earth that appears. Just that entire part of the plot to get the trident. Like, we knew in the end he'd get the trident. That's part of why this is so predictable. But the journey to the center of the earth was very Jules Verne-ish. I tell you what, I was like, what is happening? Where'd this portal... You mean to tell me this portal has just been here undiscovered this whole time? Nobody noticed these weird energy fluctuations? And then he goes through with Mira, and they both survive and find Atlanta, of course. And then he's like underwater, but not underwater half of the time. Just the entire setup is so difficult for me to comprehend. I just don't understand how the physics of Aquaman's world in this universe works. I just want somebody to explain it to me. And I know it's a movie and I'm not supposed to care about that thing, but you need to have plausible buy-in from your audience. And when you have glaring problems with that your audience can key in on, it's going to remove us mentally from the film. And then that's where you start losing the audience, because they lose the thread that the story has, because their brains are going, something's not right here. Sort of like in a dream. When you realize you're dreaming, you wake up, right? That's kind of what I'm talking about. There's a lot of things that also aren't explained, like William Dafoe's character. I enjoyed William Dafoe in this. Every time I see him in anything, I'm like, mother frickin' William Dafoe. There he is. But they don't explain really who he is, because for people that aren't familiar with the Aquaman lore, and I'm not all that familiar with it, I'm going to be very honest, I'm not an Aquaman expert. You don't really know who he is. It doesn't explain how they made contact in the first place, why he was training with him, who William Dafoe was in relation to Queen Atlanna, why he was working against Orm, what his motivation was, what his orders from Atlanna were. It doesn't explain any part of that. And they have like this relationship development where you have Dafoe training him and then looking on all proud, but there's no foundation or context to base that on. So it's really just sort of, you can't get yourself to care about it as much. And it's the same thing with Black Manta. Like, his whole plot line was so predictable and it was so tropey. I could not buy into the storyline for Black Manta. And I think that the character is cool. And the character is obviously intelligent because he gets given like this advanced technology and for whatever reason decides to make like the dorkiest helmet in existence. But he's smart enough to figure out how to do that, you know, with the equipment that he has, which is impressive. However, I hated the outfit they put him in because it's so doofy. And I am aware that this is how he looks in the comics. I'm aware of that. These comics started quite a long time ago, and things should and could and have been modernized to an extent so that, again, you don't have your audience getting ripped out of the context of immersion that you try to get them to buy into when you are making a film for an audience of people. Black Manta just looked like a crazy bug-eyed giant space alien in that suit. They should have kept true to the aesthetics and made it sleeker or modernized it somehow while still paying tribute to the original outfit that he wore in the comics. This just looked so dorky that I laughed for a while out of sheer derision at how dumb it looked. And the character's not dumb. It's a really interesting character. You feel for him when he loses his father, even though, again, his entire plot line is predictable, and he's got some really cheesy lines, too. Like, he's like, we'll pay you heavily to kill Aquaman. The only payment I need is to kill him. It's just like, all right, dude. Tone it down. Mira's use of powers in this also was inconsistent, and that bothered me. Because you have times where she's totally fine, like twirling little water creatures in a fountain for children. And then you have other times where just breaking glass is difficult for her when she throws wine shards at the attackers. I was watching Arthur and her run from and fight these commandos that were sent after them. And I was like, well, we already know why she's being tracked. It's the bracelet. But if she can control the water and those dudes can't survive above the surface without water, why wouldn't she just control the water inside the suits? I don't understand. Oh, I know why. Because they needed her to not do that so they could prolong the action sequence. That's not good writing. It would have been really cool if you could have showed, like, she jacks up Orm's stuff, like, big time in the middle of the movie when he's first challenged by Aquaman, because you're right about, you're getting close to the middle of the movie by that point. It's a long movie. There's a lot in this movie. You know she's super powerful. She's, like, really powerful. She just, for some reason, doesn't think to control the water within their suits, even though she sweatbends like Katara does in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Just the implementation of her powers is just so inconsistent. And with that, I think the implementation of the character's level of intelligence is inconsistent, because you have the character demonstrating a very logical, intelligent mind, orchestrating a plan, escaping, and then you have the character just reacting I think just to have a pretty face in an action scene is really what it felt like. I will say I really loved Mira's costuming. Like, that jellyfish outfit was bitchin'. They styled her really well, except I will say the underwater fights, the epic fight scene at the end when they're underwater and they have this really, really overdrawn out kiss between her and Jason Momoa. My husband was like, why does she have heels on underwater? It's because it's fashion, okay? Don't question it. The other thing that I didn't understand is that the movie doesn't really show that Aquaman is any more powerful than anybody else in Atlantis, other than that sometimes he can talk to animals. the movie almost makes it look like Mira's more powerful than he is, which is not a bad thing. I think it's cool to see her in action, but if the movie's about Aquaman and he's supposed to be a badass superhero, I mean, look at him. He looks dope, right? Like he's a badass character. Make him badass. Make him better than everybody else. You know what I'm saying? Like he's got to have some level of extra oomph. I felt like he didn't have enough oomph for me. I started laughing at the end, the epic end scene when he just like rides the kaiju up at I'm sorry, it's a kraken. I just saw it. It looks just like the kaiju in Pacific Rim. Please tell me I'm not the only one who thinks that. Did you guys feel like that thing looked like the kaiju in Pacific Rim? Because I was watching it and I was like, oh look, that's how the breach was created. I finally have answers. I mean, it was cool. Don't get me wrong. It was cool. And then the other part of me felt bad for all the animals he was controlling during that scene, because I could just imagine like one of the riders that got you see this shark chomping on its rider. You could just imagine like, what if the rider reared that thing from an egg and he was like, Brutus, why are you doing this? And the shark is just eating him like, Dad, no. I'm sorry, Dad.
Brutus! How could you, Brutus?
Dad! I don't know what's happening. Like, there's a lot of unnecessary sad casualties in that scene, especially like the people that got coerced into fighting when they didn't want to. And speaking of being coerced into fighting, about halfway through the movie, it's the scene where Orm kills the Fisherman King. Orm is not the head king yet. There's a bunch of different kings that are all Atlanteans. And he just starts killing the other kings and taking over. And all of the other kings have up until this point, except for the one, Mira's dad, who was like, I guess if the surface is attacking, I'll join you. They just let him start to screw everything up. And they're like, sure, we'll just watch you kill the other kings with no consequences. Orm is not the head king. He is not more powerful than all of them combined. I mean, he may be more powerful than some of them one-on-one, but if none of them like him and none of them like what he's doing, why did they all just go, oh no, there's literally no way for us to approach the situation other than to pin our hopes on this random half-blood prince? No, we don't mean Severus Snape. We mean Arthur. What sense does this make? I realized this halfway through the film and I was like, did I miss something? Like, is Orm the head king? No, he's not, because the whole point of him doing that is to get the trident and go to war so he can become the Ocean Master, aka the head king. He's not the head king. Nothing was stopping the rest of them from going up against him. So why didn't they? Why did none of them stand up when he just started killing other kings? I don't understand this. For me, that is the biggest problem with the plot in this movie. And if I've misunderstood something, please tell me. Because I may have. I'm going to fully admit I may have missed something. If the whole point of the plot, I thought, was that he could become the Ocean Master and the head king so he could boss the other ones around, how are the other ones just letting him boss them around in advance when they could easily all shut him down in unison? And it looks like maybe one of them supported him and it was uneasy at best. I just don't understand this. I don't understand why anybody didn't stand up to him. And it was really just because they needed to have a plot so that Arthur would become king. And thank you again for the really obvious parallels about the Knights of the Round Table and the legendary King Arthur, especially with him pulling the trident out of the dead king's grip. It was very, very much so Sword in the Stone. You got your point across. Kudos. I loved the action in this movie, okay? I think that Jason Momoa's Aquaman is great. This movie is not as bad as the other DC movies, but there are so many problems. And that biggest one for me is there's really like, Orm could have been shut down like that by the other kings. And there wouldn't have been a need for any of this. And they don't offer you a plausible explanation of why he doesn't just get shut down. And I don't get that. I don't get that. Like, why doesn't anybody stand up to him? He's not the head king yet. That's the whole point of the movie. He wants to be head king. I know I keep saying this, but I'm genuinely, this is what bothered me. This almost ruined the entire movie for me when I realized that. I was like, why is he not being opposed. And there is some opposition at the end by like the crab people, but it's not just the crab guy that didn't like him. The fisherman didn't like him. Granted, he's the one that got killed, but the other king wasn't really a fan. Mira wasn't a fan. William Dafoe wasn't a fan. Like, why wasn't he stopped? I don't understand. I'm gonna stop ranting about this. I apologize. That was quite a rant. I do like this movie. I think it's fun. I don't know that I'm going to buy this on DVD when it comes out. I don't know that I'll even buy it on Blu-ray when it comes out, but it's a fun movie. I do want to see more Aquaman. This one just really suffers from huge plot holes. And that is the biggest issue for me. And I do wish that they had developed the characters a little more. As a hero, you still don't really understand who Aquaman is. Like, he makes quips now and then, and I will say the use of humor was well done in this. I want to give them kudos. It wasn't over the top. They weren't trying to be Marvel. It was pretty well handled. And it makes Arthur's character more likable. But you don't really know who he is. And you don't know why he's supposed to be better than everyone else, as I mentioned earlier. I just wish they had developed his character more. I really do. Anyway, I think I'm done ranting. That's my spoilers talk. Tell me what you thought about it. If I have missed something in my plot hole issues, let me know and we can talk about it in the comments. And in the meantime, I hope you're all doing really well, and I'll catch you later.